Point Pleasant, West Virginia, 1966. Two couples driving home from a double date report seeing a terrifying, humanoid winged creature with glowing red eyes. The monster reportedly followed their car, attacking it from the sky. Over the next 13 months, more than 100 people from Point Pleasant claimed to personally witness the creature, now known as Mothman. Hello and welcome to the Mystery Archives, the show where we revisit some classic mysteries and see if there's anything left in the evidence yet to uncover. Martin, we've discussed the Mothman before. It was you and me that discussed this, wasn't it?
A little while ago now, but yes. Enough time to be, to have a refresher and to be, let's be honest, interested once again in Mothman.
Do you have any recollection of what your impression was the last time we left it? Do you think currently that the Mothman could have existed?
It's a good question, isn't it? It's a good question. I'm always naturally quite skeptical about these things, and Mothman is no exception. But I don't know, humour me, the Mothman exists. Say it exists, Alex. Please say it exists. I want to believe.
Shall we refamiliarise ourselves with the iconic Mothman case? The first Mothman sightings occurred near the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1966. On November 12th of that year, 5 men in the nearby town of Clendenin were digging a grave when they reported seeing a man-like shadowy figure fly over their heads from a nearby tree. 3 days later, on November 15th, 2 couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallett, were driving just outside the town of Point Pleasant in a place known as the TNT area. It was here that they were attacked from the sky by a large flying man with 10-foot wings. They drove straight to the courthouse and reported what they saw. The local newspaper headlines the following day read, "Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something." So these were the first sightings of the Mothman in recorded history in 1966, and over the next year, reportedly over 100 people came forward and claimed to personally witness the Mothman. Wow. Over 100 people, wow. Martin. That's a lot of witnesses.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite compelling. I mean, what I would say is that the 100 number doesn't actually surprise me as much as it being 2 couples on that same day, on November 15th.
They were known by the deputy when they reported this story. They reported it to a deputy called Millard Halstead, who he didn't believe them. He didn't believe their story, but he knew that these couples, they weren't troublemakers in the town. And when they showed up at the courthouse to report this, they looked genuinely terrified of what they'd seen.
Weird. It's compelling that it's different groups, right? You have the people at the graveyard, people in the cars, only 3 days apart. It doesn't seem like there was much media coverage in between the 2 sightings, between those 3 days. It seems like they did see something, both of these people, independently of one another. Didn't they see, there was like an area called the TNT area, wasn't it, where they sighted Mothman? And that's kind of that's quite important to the story. Can you tell us a little bit more about why this was called the TNT area?
Sure. So this used to be a munitions plant during World War II. They were making weapons to send off to the Allies to fight the Nazis. It's made up of thousands of acres of farmland, woodland, and wetlands. So one notable theory is that the Mothman is a mutated animal, mutated by the dangerous chemicals and radiation left behind by this munitions plant. I don't know whether... I don't think that's scientifically possible, let's be honest. You see it in The Simpsons, but does that happen in real life? I could imagine animals getting mutated in the form of just having tumors and stuff, but turning into like a 6-foot tall, 10-foot winged creature. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know about that. Interestingly, the night that the couples did report seeing this creature, the police did go back to the TNT area around 2 a.m. that night to investigate. They didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but did report hearing some weird static disturbances coming through on the radio.
Ooh.
Not sure if that was ever explained.
It adds to the creepiness, if not to the solving of the mystery. What is the counter to this then? But what could it be like? Just a giant bird, just a standard giant bird that looks a bit weird.
So one theory put forward by Dr. Robert L. Smith, an associate professor of wildlife biology at West Virginia University, He'd said that this could have been a sandhill crane, which is, can be found in these wetlands near Point Pleasant. A sandhill crane stands almost as tall as the average man and has bright red flash around its eyes, which could have been mistaken as these bright red glowing eyes. That, to me, going into this mystery, seems like quite a plausible explanation. Sandhill crane, although it doesn't match the description put forward by a lot of witnesses, obviously.
I guess at night, that poor visibility at night, it's possible. It seems more likely than it being a mutant creature from the nearby TNT area. But, each to their own.
So over the next year, this case was investigated by author John Keel, who wrote the Mothman prophecies and basically turned the Mothman into a legendary icon. So shall we discuss John Keel?
Yes, let's.
John Keel, author of the Mothman prophecies and an influential ufologist, interviewed Point Pleasant residents and claimed that the townspeople had experienced a host of bizarre phenomena, influenced by the supernatural manifestations of the Mothman. This included increased UFO sightings, regular visitations by the mysterious Men in Black, and of course, seeing the Mothman itself. So he's basically saying that these Mothman sightings and the Mothman itself was a hotbed for paranormal activity, and he's sort of blaming the Mothman for that, for bringing all its paranormal buddies with it. Do you think there's any kind of validity in what he's saying?
Not really, is there? Not really. There's no real evidence for that. He's just basically saying what he thinks, isn't he? Like, at that time as well, everyone was kind of a bit paranoid. There was the fear of the outside, the fear of the unknown. We're post-World War II, we're into the Cold War. We're talking about hearsay, we're talking about the local papers selling newspapers and everyone wanting to read, a story from the local area that means that their quite frankly kind of small, insignificant town is actually the center of something amazing. He's trying to make something of this town.
I mean, he succeeded. In terms of conspiracy and mystery figures, John Keel is huge in this world, in the world of ufology, cryptozoology. He really popularized this. I think he's responsible for Men in Black as a kind of term as well.
Mm-hmm. You can thank John Keel, not Will Smith, for the Men in Black. Well done,
exactly. On the 15th of December 1967, the Silver Bridge, a suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia and Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed, killing 46 people. It was the worst loss of life from a bridge incident ever recorded in US history. According to Keel, many of the victims were relatives of Mothman witnesses. After this tragedy, sightings of the Mothman subsided, and since this fateful event, the creature has only shown itself a handful of times, if at all. The townspeople of Point Pleasant soon came to the conclusion that if the Mothman appears, it is an omen of impending disaster. This photo from the day of the collapse supposedly shows the creature on the bridge. Is this the Mothman? And could it in any way have caused the disaster? What do you think, Martin? Looking at the picture, is this the best picture we have of Mothman? Is this it?
It might be the best picture we have of Mothman, but still, it's not that convincing, is it? That could be anything. The one thing that is going for it is that kind of design isn't replicated on some of the other struts of the bridge.
It's true. It looks like something is there.
There's something there, but is it Mothman? I mean, come on. The photo is a bit weird, but I don't know. We're looking for patterns here. We're looking for patterns in a photo because of what we know happened. We knew there was a disaster, so we're looking in the photo for something that explains why this would happen. So I just don't think it's that convincing.
So are you saying that this could be a case of pareidolia, where we're seeing the Mothman?
Oh, yes.
We're seeing the shape of the Mothman because we're looking for the Mothman.
It's a brain putting an image there, and also, you could pick out something else in that photo if you wanted to.
What about the fact that many of the victims of the tragedy were apparently related to people who also witnessed the Mothman? Do you think there's any mystery in that?
It is a good point, and without having all the family trees, we don't know whether it's necessarily true. But I back John Keel to do his research, at least in this case, because it's very easy to disprove, right? If it's not true. But what you would say in a town like Point Pleasant and these small rural towns is that people just do know each other, right? There are large families in these areas, so being related to someone or knowing someone who died in the disaster when 47 people died is not it's not extraordinary. It's not out of the ordinary.
Okay, well, how about the fact that after this disaster happened, the sightings of the Mothman seemed to stop? That would indicate that it seemed to have some impact on this disaster.
Yeah, is this evidence of the Mothman? Something strange was going. I mean, it could be the contrary, couldn't it? It could be the absolute opposite. The town went through this tragedy and nobody was interested in the story anymore, so the sightings stopped, right?
Are we saying that Point Pleasant was a sleepy town, not much went on, so they latched onto this Mothman story as that was the most kind of exciting, scary thing going on at the time, but when the town experienced a real, true, horrific tragedy, then obviously this kind of Mothman legend kind of faded. Like, people weren't interested in that anymore because they had this real, true tragedy,
When something like this happens to a small community, it devastates it. And, I think that you probably don't have as much time for laughing and joking or feeling like you want to explore the unknown and, explore your imagination when something so tragic happens.
Very true. Well, we've got some more modern evidence, so let's jump into that. Although sightings became fewer and further between after the Silver Bridge disaster, there have been a few possible glimpses of the Mothman in recent years. On the 20th of November 2016, an unidentified man captured these pictures while driving on State Route 2, just outside of Point Pleasant. He allegedly saw the creature while driving and pulled over to take these photos. He sent the images to a local news station, WCHS, who reported the story the following day. Could these photos show the Mothman has returned? I think these might just be the best pictures of the Mothman we have.
Yeah, there's definitely something there, and it looks like a bit like a moth, doesn't it? A bit like what you'd expect the Mothman to look like.
I mean, some of them look like a man, like literally the legs and like a man, but with wings. Like it looks like he's actually falling out of the sky. Some of them. Yeah,
like when you look at those old funny videos from like the 1930s, and it's someone who's attaching wings to themselves and jumping off like a little bridge into water.
What? That's so niche. What? Those 1930s videos of someone attaching wings to their arms and jumping off a bridge into water? No, I don't know that. Is that a thing?
You haven't seen those kind of, where someone tries to attach wings to themselves and it's like all sped up. I'll send you a few photos afterwards. Basically like early wingsuits, basically.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe that's what this is. Or maybe that's what it is.
It could be.
But yeah, I mean, the photo is good in terms of the silhouette. It looks like a moth and a man combined. The issue is that there's no scale to the photo. There's no kind of background. It's just, I don't want to say fake because I don't think it's fake. I don't think it's a fake photo, but it just seems quite convenient, like the timing, right? It's the 50th anniversary of Mothman appearing at this time. It seems to me like it's someone trying to stir up a bit of attention around it. He's trying to sell the pictures to the local paper, maybe nationwide papers, but maybe I'm being cynical.
Another point that some people have made is that if you just ignore the kind of legs part of the picture, right, where his legs are, the human legs you're imagining, then it does just look like a bird, like the rest of it. So what some people have suggested is maybe it's a bird, like an owl or something, but carrying a snake. Admittedly, that wouldn't explain why this person pulled over at the side of the road, because you would think he would have a better understanding, seeing it in motion anyway, of what that was. It wouldn't look like a man if it was an owl carrying a snake, would it?
No, exactly. Plus you get the perspective, don't you? When it, from a single photo, it looks like something, oh my goodness, that's Mothman. And then it changes direction slightly and you're like, yeah, it's a heron or an owl or whatever it could be, right?
So the fact that he was so disturbed by what he saw that he pulled over at the side of the road and took these pictures, I do find that kind of interesting.
He's claimed that it's Mothman, but also is refusing to be interviewed or show his identity, right? So
yeah,
it's difficult to know.
Interestingly, 2017 saw a big resurgence in Mothman sightings, but not in West Virginia like you'd expect. Mothman had a resurgence in Chicago, of all places. In 2017 alone, Chicago saw over 55 sightings of the creature.
Ooh, okay.
One of these witnesses, John Amitrano, was working a Friday shift as a security for Chicago's popular Logan Square hangout, The Owl. But when he went outside, he saw something odd. I saw a plane flying, but also something moving really awkwardly under it. It didn't look like a bat so much as what illustrations of pterodactyls look like, with the slenderness of its head and its wing shape. I know what birds and what bats look like. This thing didn't have any feathers or fur, and it didn't fly like anything I've ever seen. So he also adds that this creature, whatever it was that he saw, seemed to have muscular legs, a jutting tailbone, and a human-like shape, and flew in a strange swooping motion, undulating up and down. Bizarre, right? This is quite recent, 2017.
It's those city birds again, Alex.
Those city
been treated
birds
badly all their life. Those city birds
with the muscular legs and jutting tailbones.
Muscular legs to walk up all those city steps. Yeah, no, odd.
Do you think this is like a similar thing that happened in Point Pleasant also happened in 2017 in Chicago? Because sightings in Chicago have slowed down again. But do you think it was a similar case of like mass hysteria or something?
Yeah, there's a bandwagoning, isn't there? When someone sees it and it gets a bit of media hype, people are on the lookout. And then whatever they see that potentially could be Mothman, they claim, "Oh my goodness, I've seen him in the central Chicago." You'd expect loads of people to see that if it was actually Mothman. So again, you have to be a bit skeptical of this.
But at the end of the day, Martin, we just don't know for sure, do we?
I'm afraid we don't. I mean, I think it's one of those that's. Are we going to witness more Mothman sightings in the future? Potentially, but I imagine that will come in waves, right? You'll have one person who sees it, it gets flagged in the local newspaper, and suddenly there's 30, 40, 50 sightings. As I've said numerous times, I am skeptical. I'm skeptical of cryptids in all their forms. So I will remain skeptical, especially in the day and age that we have such amazing technology to capture clear imagery, and yet still. After years and years and years, it's the same for UFOs as well. We're left with these clearly doctored images or something that looks like it's been filmed on a potato.
You do have to be skeptical. Actually, no, you don't. In something this harmless, I think you can believe whatever you want to believe. The main evidence for the Mothman relies on witness testimony, which is notoriously unreliable. While the new photos we do have are intriguing, they are a long way from proving the Mothman's existence. It seems likely that this is simply a case of mass panic, likely heightened by attention seekers lying about what they saw and people mistaking a bird for a supernatural creature. In the end though, we're not in the position to dismiss over 100 witnesses. We may never know what happened in Point Pleasant, and it's unlikely that any new evidence will emerge. The Mothman has earned its place in West Virginia folklore, but it hasn't yet earned its place in reality. But what do you think at home? Do you agree with our verdict or do you disagree? Let us know in the comments down below, and let us know as well if you'd like to see any more of these videos. It's a bit of a blast from the past, Martin.
It is, and something we've been wanting to do for a little while, so happy for you to bring this one to the table. But yeah, no, I'm up for more if other people are up for watching more. So yeah, do let us know.
Thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.